I'm not a historian, but neither are you. So, how about we, the people, learn this stuff together? Welcome to US 101. And for today's episode, you're going to need the following things, man. You're going to need a knife, a fork, a napkin, and a huge appetite. We all know the story of Thanksgiving, right? I mean, we all told it in our first grade Thanksgiving pageants when we were wee little kids. I mean, you guys remember how it goes, right? Can I get the proper music for this story, please? The Pilgrims came to America. The Indians helped them to grow food. The Pilgrims thanked the Indians. They had a feast and called it Thanksgiving. Thank you. And all the parents are in the audience just beaming and just clapping with pride. It's my boy. Did you hear him say his line? He said his line so well. Meanwhile, if there were any Native American parents in the audience, I'm pretty sure that their response was probably something akin to... Now, before you sit down and indulge yourself in that oh-so-abundant meal that you only eat once a year while at the same time taking the opportunity to tell off all those relatives that you can't stand, how about I tell you the real events that led up to what has now become known as the first Thanksgiving. So our story kicks off in England in 1608, and the group of people that will later become known as Pilgrims when they go to the New World are currently known as religious separatists. These are people that want to freely practice their own religion without any sort of persecution in England, because at the time, these group of people wanted to break away from the Anglican Church. So in 1608, these separatists make their way to Leiden, Holland, and they will stay there for a decade before finally realizing that Holland is a bit too liberal for their taste. I mean, yeah, we want to freely practice our religion, but we don't want to have any fun doing it. So in September of 1620, these religious separatists board a boat called the Mayflower and leave Holland behind for the New World. Now, why are they going to the New World? Because at this point in time, there are already colonies that have been set up by English settlers in pre-colonial America. So the Pilgrims figured that if we go to the New World, we'll have land there, we'll have the opportunity to practice our religion freely. No one can tell us what to do. The voyage from Holland to the New World takes a little over 2 months, and during the course of that trip, the boat is rocking quite a bit. It is not a smooth sail. In fact, it's quite rough seas and all that. You're bouncing around. It's not fun for anybody. And on top of that, these Pilgrims, not exactly maritime masters, okay? Because their original plan was to land near the mouth of the Hudson River, which is closer to New York. But they missed their mark quite a bit. Instead of making it to the mouth of the Hudson River, they land on the tip of Cape Cod, which is in Massachusetts. But then a month later, the Pilgrims will leave Cape Cod, sail across the Massachusetts Bay, and disembark at a place called Plymouth. Well, they'll try to disembark at a place called Plymouth. There's one problem with that. The problem is called timing, because remember, they left Holland in September of 1620. It takes them a little over 2 months to make it to the New World. By then, it's November of 1620, and then a month later, in December of 1620, they sail from Cape Cod to Plymouth. December of 1620, in New England, what do you think the weather is like? It is freezing out. So combine the brutal winter with disease like scurvy, these Pilgrims start dying off. In fact, by the time the springtime rolls around and the Pilgrims can actually, start building their lives, building their homes, start trying to plant food and build crops, almost half of them are dead. But in March of 1621, a lifeline will be cast out towards the Pilgrims. In fact, it will actually walk into the town of Plymouth and introduce itself in English. This lifeline comes in the form of an Abenaki native, and he greets the Pilgrims and he says, "Hey, you guys look like you have no clue what you are doing. This is pathetic. No worries though. No worries. We're cool. I see you guys are in trouble. I'm gonna help you out. I got you." This Abenaki native would then proceed to introduce the Pilgrims to a man by the name of Massasoit, who is the sachem, or the chief of the Wampanoag tribe. And in addition to being introduced to Massasoit, the Pilgrims are also introduced to a native that you are probably all familiar with because we all learned about him in elementary school, a man by the name of Squanto. And Squanto will be the guy that basically shows the Pilgrims how to survive in this new world. He shows them how to get sap out of trees, how to hunt, how to fish, how to plant. He basically gives them the tools they need for survival. And not only will Squanto show the Pilgrims how to go about surviving in this new world, but he's also the one that sort of brokers the peace treaty between the Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims. And as the months pass, and as Squanto and Massasoit and the Wampanoag tribe help help these pilgrims build themselves up from a malnourished and mentally frail state, the pilgrims are using these tactics that they've been taught and are starting to finally reap what they've sown. They're starting to gather the bounty of their harvest, and it's quite a large bounty. So the pilgrims decide, after collecting this large bounty, that they're going to have a massive celebratory feast to celebrate the fact that they are not dead, that they are still alive, that they have thrived in this new world, that they have made lives for themselves. And we're not exactly sure as to when this festival is supposed to have taken place. It's said that it's supposed to have taken place between September and November of 1621, but we're not sure as to the exact date. But here's the thing about this. As the pilgrims are setting up this festival, this celebration to commemorate the fact that they are alive, Massasoit shows up to the party, and he brings about 90 members of the tribe with him. I mean, come on, it makes sense that Massasoit and the tribe would show up to their festival, right? I mean, it was them that taught them how to fish, them that taught them how to plant crops, them that helped them hunt and to survive. You really think that they weren't going to show up to a party that is only happening because of them? No, they're bringing the whole crew, and they're going to rock out with these pilgrims. So what was eaten at the celebratory feast? Unfortunately, there was no stuffing. Stuffing was not around yet, which is a damn shame, because that's one of the best side dishes at Thanksgiving. Well, according to Edward Winslow, a writer who provides us with a brief account as to what happened that day, says the following. He says, quote, "Our governor sent 4 men on fowling. They 4 in one day killed as much fowl as, with a little help beside, served the company almost a week, at which time, amongst other recreations, we exercised our arms, many of the Indians coming among us, and among the rest their greatest king Massasoit, with some 90 men, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted. And they went out and killed 5 deer, which we brought to the plantation and bestowed on our governor and upon the captain and others." So Massasoit and these 90 natives, they show up, and they don't only show up to eat, but they bring deer. They're bringing venison to the table. Good meats. Not only do we have venison, but we've got some fowl, which means like duck, geese, some other birds. We've got fish. We've got corn. We've got crops. We've got a whole assortment of other goodies. And the thing is about this feast, like Edward Winslow said, this wasn't a thing where, they just showed up, they ate the food, they took a nap, and then they took leftovers home. No, they partied for 3 days straight. They were so happy that they were alive. And additionally, this relationship between the Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims are one of the few where natives and white people coexist peacefully, because it's said that the Wampanoag actually kept a peace with this group of pilgrims for about 50 years. Massasoit and the tribe kept these pilgrims under their wing. They protected them, they looked out for them, and they helped them to survive, and they helped them to thrive. But unfortunately, as we should all know by now, as more white settlers come from Europe over to the New World, they start infringing on native lands, they start taking over native lands, and a lot of these tribes are removed from their lands, in a lot of cases violently removed from their lands, which is why there are some Native American families and some Native American celebrations that take the holiday of Thanksgiving and use it as a way to remember their past and to honor their dead. But it turns out that this story, this quote-unquote first Thanksgiving, wasn't really common knowledge in the United States until later in the 19th century. It would be poems like The Courtship of Miles Standish that would bring about these images of the Wampanoag and pilgrims to these 19th century Americans, and it would pique their interest in that specific time. And Thanksgiving didn't even become a national holiday, guys, until 1863, when Abraham Lincoln, at the behest of author Sarah Josepha Hale, proclaimed it to be a national holiday and put it on the last Thursday of November. And it would remain on that day until 1939, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided to push the holiday up a week so that he could start the Christmas holiday shopping season 1 week earlier. And the reason he wanted to do that was so that he could get people out into the stores and start spending money so as to boost the economy during the Great Depression. And then in 1941, FDR signed a bill stating that Thanksgiving would now officially take place on the 4th Thursday in November. So if you want to blame somebody for Black Friday and for all those idiots running around Walmarts and Best Buys and Targets fighting each other for TVs and for socks and for whatever else it is that they're clamoring for, in a way, you could blame FDR if you really wanted to. And there you have it, my friends, the story of the quote-unquote first Thanksgiving between the Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims. Now you can bring your first grader into the room and tell them all the juicy details about the story, like how the Pilgrims almost all died of scurvy, and you can go into how horrible of a disease that is, and then you can tell them about how these natives saved them and helped them to thrive and helped them to grow, and in return, years later, these natives would be killed violently and driven off their lands in cases of things like King Philip's War or Pontiac's War. And as always, guys, I am thankful for all of you. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode and for hanging out. And for those of you that have subscribed to the channel, liked the videos, shared them, left comments in the comment section down below, you guys are what's going to make my Thanksgiving tremendous this year. As always, you can follow US 101 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. All those links down below in the description box. Guys, I will see you next week for an all-new episode of US 101. Until then, I am all done. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys that celebrate Thanksgiving. Enjoy your turkey, enjoy all the feasting, and don't be too upset at the relatives that you don't like. I mean, you only see them once a year. If you want to really get mad at them, then just go off in an email. It's a lot cleaner, it's a lot nicer, it's a lot safer, and you won't be disowned by your family if you start yelling at them for reasons that they can't understand because you're a young person full of angst. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'll see y'all when I see y'all.